Welcome to the Play Inspire Unite podcast. I'm your host, Ben Rycroft. As part of this ongoing interview series, we're always trying to find new people to tap into with their wealth of knowledge and bring it to our audience. Today, we have Roy Nasrallah, Vice President of Marketing for the Canadian Premier League, and a man who up until his move to the CPL had primarily only worked for one company for his entire life. It just happened to be the biggest sports marketing enterprise on the planet, Nike. Roy, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a privilege to be part of this show.
So you were at Nike, one of the foremost sports brands, often considered number one in key cities across the planet. Talk us through your decision to come to CPL, what it offered to you and why it was so alluring to you to come to it at this time.
I think for many people who doesn't know, I'm new to Canada. I landed 18 months back. I came as an immigrant. I wanted to build my future and the future of my kids, and we chose Canada. It's the best country in the world. And the moment I landed, I look on how I can build on my passion to sports and continue to drive and fuel this passion in a country like Canada. And I can tell you, I met a lot of people till I met Scott, David, and Paul at the league, and the way they presented the league and the mission around it. I can tell you that's it's a unique opportunity to build a legacy. And the opportunity as well to work with youth, because if we look at soccer in Canada, it's the number one sport for youth. You cannot just ignore the fact that soccer is the number one sport in the world, and by having this opportunity to be part of such organization and build a pro league, that's a unique opportunity. And finally, I think the mission itself for Canadians by Canadians says a lot. So that's why I chose the CPL.
There's such an excitement around the league at the moment. We're only a little bit off from launch. Could you feel that excitement even before you really got going with CPL? Did you sense that there was such that hunger for this game and for this need?
I think from day one you feel that Canada is a soccer country. We've seen it with the women's national team, and we've seen it how the country is capable as well in different levels, from the grassroots up to our pro levels. We've seen it with the TFC teams, with the TFC team. We've seen it with other entities in Canada. Soccer is not new to Canada. This is not a new game. You're not starting up something new. You're building on the massive history of soccer in this country.
So startups are never easy, and startup franchises are even harder in a crowded marketplace, sort of climbing that mountain of a task. What are some of the things you've sort of done to break through some of that static and get resonance with CPL, not just a fan level, but making it a brand that's appealing to partners? You just announced Volkswagen the other day. Fantastic announcement. So what are some of those things you're doing to sort of break through that static?
Thank you. First, to clarify, this is not a startup. As I just said, sure. You're not bringing a new sport to Canada. Sure. As well with the history that this country has with soccer and the love that we have. I think from a league perspective, this is a movement. We always spoke about it. I think the league is just fueling this movement by adding the pro level on top of it. From a league perspective, I think that the way we approach from day one the league is by putting our supporters and our players and coaches first. I think everything we're building, it's for the people. Whether when we started building around the identities of the club, and whether how we drive the whole excitement last year around God Game, is just taking the approach of we want to be community first from a league perspective.
I sort of like what you're saying. I think it's a movement. And soccer in this country has sort of been going through this massive movement in the last 10 to 15 years. 2026 is on the horizon. CPL is starting. Just sort of look at the landscape now and tell me where you see it. What's it going to look like for CPL and for soccer in Canada in 10 years? What do you see for the league and the sport in this country?
So first to start, like soccer is a great connector. You know, it brings people together, and I think this league will bring communities together. We will create rivalries. We will create derbies. We will have clásicos, and we will drive passion to the sport. 10 years from now, I think we will keep growing and expanding the game from a city to another, and we'll keep fueling this movement.
Let's, if we can, dig down sort of into the sports marketing side a little bit more. I get a little bit geeky. We were talking off air about the Canadian Premier League app, and I think that you guys are doing all sorts of really exciting things around that. We see brand app and mobile ticketing being used ever more as an integrated way to sort of track consumer habits and look at the game away from the game as well. So where do you see the space going from a marketing perspective at CPL?
From two words, you will expanding and evolving. I think the app is one of the biggest products for us from a marketing side. We want to keep driving the app. Supporters are looking for a authentic and seamless experience within the league. I think the app will give them this experience. It's one of the enabler, we feel. At the same time, the app will help us to understand our supporters and how to service them into the future. And of course, through the app, you will get the data, you will understand their behavior, and then the question becomes, where do we go from there? What features we will add to the app, how we evolve around the app, how we can do things differently with our supporters. I only see it evolving, and of course through the lens of our supporters.
So one of the things that I like about the seamless concept is being able to use that app to go into a stadium and pay for your pop or drink, or to go into the stadium and order it to your seat. Is that sort of the direction you're heading?
Absolutely. I think from a service perspective as well, we're looking more into that. So from a stadium experience, but as well from a day-to-day experience, whether having partners on board that really add value to the app and make the journey much easier as well for our supporters. So it's not the in-game piece has a big part of the app, but I would say as well outside the game there will be services through the app as well.
What sort of things would you see going on in-game that would be part of the app?
I think AR could be part of the game. Definitely we're not speaking like F&B is taking, but I think sort of engagement as well. We're talking to many partners at the moment, whether during the game, whether at halftime, how we can really leverage the app and make supporters engage through the app.
That's awesome. So let's stay in that space and just talk a little bit more about trends in the sport marketing space. I know people within our community are often looking at the broader world and trying to understand how it could relate back to them. So what are some of the trends that you're looking at for 2019 in the sport marketing space, whether it be digital or otherwise?
Yeah, I think speaking from a digital, I think vertical videos is on the rise, and you can see it's becoming more trendy and trendy. Obviously, Instagram plays a big role in that. Secondary next to it, maybe Snapchat as well. I would definitely say that influencers as well is a bit shifting from celebrity to micro influencers. So people want a bit more real people as well. You can, of course, Gen Z, and I think Gen Z it start to integrate part of the workforce as well. So they start being integrating in the corporate environment. This is something we should start looking at it. And of course, personalization. And personalization not only from a product perspective, but as well personalization from a content perspective.
So what would that look like from a content perspective?
Well, whether it's how you build videos and you drive videos through different channels, or it could be even from what people use, like from a newsletter perspective, like targeting groups in a different way, talking to them in a different language, approaching them differently as well from a communication perspective.
That's super exciting. CPL just around the corner now. That's been Roy Nasrallah. Thank you very much for joining us. Kickoff, as I mentioned, just right around the corner. So you're going to want to make sure and get out, support your local soccer. We're growing this game together. So for Roy, I'm Ben. Until we see you next time, we encourage you to play, inspire, and unite.